This is how to win in the world of Bitcoin. I have two charts. I'm going to walk you through them, and it's a lot simpler than it looks like from what's on the screen. So let's go. All right, you win in Bitcoin by spending it at a price that is higher than the price you bought it for, thereby undoing the effects of inflation. For example, if you bought Bitcoin in 2023, you spend it in 2024, you were up, I don't know, 150%. You bought Bitcoin in 2024, you spent it in 2025, you were up 100%. And that pattern keeps repeating. But because the price chart on a daily basis, which is on the left side of the screen, because it looks so jagged, people don't really understand what's really going on here. So it looks scary. They're like, but I don't know what to do. It's kind of all over the place. It goes up and down. But what's actually happening, if you look at this price chart, the price chart on the right, well, let me explain the one on the left first, and then I'll flip over to the one on the right. So what's actually going on here is Bitcoin, you can't really tell it from the left chart. Let's talk only about the left chart right now. Is Bitcoin is spending on this left chart about 7 months in the ballpark of $28,000. Yeah, there's a little bit of time below 20,000. There's a little bit of time above 40, but overall, it spent about 7 solid months. You'll see on the bottom right chart, 224 days, around $28,000. So if you just sort of zoom out, it's like, what happened in 2023, late 2022, early 2023? The answer is Bitcoin spent 224 days, which is more than 7 solid months. Bitcoin spent more than 7 solid months, generally in the ballpark of $28,000. Now, a lot of people did not buy Bitcoin around $28,000 because it felt like it was going nowhere. For 7 months, it was up and then it was down. Look at all this grind in here. For 7 months, all this grind here just felt like it was going nowhere. It just felt like it was grinding sideways. When's something going to happen? When's something going to happen? When is something going to happen? Well, eventually something did happen relatively quickly over the course of a month or two. It got up here to $74,000 in March of 2024. And then it ground sideways for 8 solid months. You'll see this on the chart on the right. For 246 days, 8 solid months, it was within 10% of $64,000. And again, did a lot of people buy it in that zone? I mean, yes, but a lot of people didn't because they were like, well, it's going nowhere. It's grinding sideways. It feels like it's trending ever so slightly down, which is the exact same thing it felt like over here in 2023. If you draw a trend line from some of these sort of peaks early on here, all the way back down here through this little low spot, the trend line would be slightly going down. And so people are like, why would I buy Bitcoin? Because I missed out on the big run up, and now it's sort of grinding, but ever so slightly down. Then it runs up here to 74,000, and it sort of grinds around 64,000. Again, the peak was 74, but we're looking here on this chart on the right of when it was within 10% of that price. So on the left side, Bitcoin spent 224 days, 7 months within 10% of $28,000. That means within $2,800 above or below. Because obviously 10% of $28,000 is move the decimal and it's $2,800. So 2,800. So it spent 7 months within $2,800 of $28,000. Then Bitcoin spent 8 months within $6,400 of $6,400. So within 10% below or 10% above, it spent 8 solid months grinding sideways slightly down. Since then, up here on the right, you've seen we have spent from late 2024 to today, we have spent 216 days, 7 solid months grinding mostly within 10 for that 216 days. That is 216 days within 10% of 107,000, right up here, grinding. A little bit of that got within 10% on the peaks over here, but most of that is just grinding in 2025. A little bit of 2024, late 2024, but mostly super early 2025, and then, most of 2025, grinding. So how do you win at the Bitcoin game? Well, the answer is when it's grinding and being boring down here around $28,000, you buy some. And then you can sell it to buy what you need for your family and your life up here a year later at $64,000. And that's like a massive, epic uplift in the price between $28,000 and $64,000. Everything is radically discounted. Okay, so what if you're like, yeah, but I didn't buy it at $28,000. In the entire 7 months I could have bought Bitcoin within 10% of 28,000, I didn't. So you're up here last year at 64. And I mean, it was brutal. 8 solid months. Believe me, I was there. I was recording videos almost every day for 8 solid months, telling people that the pain would eventually end, that Bitcoin would eventually not be trading in this range between, I called it between 55 and 70. Obviously, 64 is not exactly the midpoint between these, but mathematically, we spent more time within 10% of $64,000 than within 10% of any other number in 2024. So the magic number is $64,000. That happened to be the midpoint where we spent the most number of days within 10% of that number. 64,000, the $64,000 question. Magic here. So what if you didn't buy it at 7 months around 28,000? You had 8 months to buy it around 64,000. And again, a lot of people didn't. And so all these people show up in 2025, and the price from late 2024, the early 2025, then there was a dip in here we'll talk about in a minute. And then we've spent, even today, right now, we're at $115,700, and that is within 10% of 107,000. So literally, right now, literally as I'm talking, we are within 10% of this 107,000, which means at the end of today, that little stick will go from 216 days to 217 days, because today was another day that you could have bought Bitcoin within 10% of $107,000. Now, what's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is this pattern eventually is going to repeat. And so you've had already 7 months to buy Bitcoin within 10% of 107. And eventually the same thing will happen. I don't know if it's going to be at 125, 132, 146, 165. Heck, I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll get lucky and it's like 180, 220. I don't know. It's probably not that big for where it's going to grind around, because the whole thing, what's actually happening here is the pig and a python, right? So the question is, the python swallows the pig around $28,000. And everybody's like, ooh, the python's hungry. It's going to infinity tomorrow. It's like, no, the python swallowed the pig. What's going to happen when a python swallows a pig? Well, it's going to take some time to digest it. That's what happens. 1 second. In this case, it takes 7 months for the python to swallow the pig and get hungry again. And when it gets hungry again, because demand outstrips supply, all the people that want to possibly sell Bitcoin within 10% of $28,000 are finally, after 7 months, they're all finally done. And the python has digested the pig, and the python's hungry again. So off the python goes looking for a new pig. Well, it finds one at $64,000, and it spends 8 months digesting it. And everybody's like, ooh, infinity tomorrow. Here we go to the moon. It's like, no, we're not going to the moon, because the python just swallowed another pig. What are we going to do? We're going to grind on this left chart. We're going to grind sideways for 8 months up here, grinding for 8 months while the pig digests the python. And then what happens? Well, we've been up here for 7 solid months within 10% of 107. Again, that's broken off. A little bit of those days are from late 2024. A handful of those days are from early 2025. The vast majority of those 216 days are from the back end of 2025. Basically since the low in April, we've had a lot of stacking of those days since then. Okay, so again, at some point it's going to go higher. Now, what's going to happen is there's all these people who are going to text me and message me on Signal and message me on Facebook Messenger and message me by text message and email me after another pig gets swallowed by the python, right? So we're bouncing around at 115.7, and Bitcoin's going to sort of tear up, at some point over the course of days or weeks or a month or two or whatever it is, to, I don't know, 146. I'm just picking a number out of thin air. 146. Then we're bouncing around at 146. And all these people are going to say, is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to buy? And I'm going to say, well, you had 8 months to buy around within 10% of 107. So yeah, you can buy up here at 146. But the whole point of money that works for you is to buy it, at the tail end of when the python is digesting the prior pig. Not when the python just catches a new pig and starts the digestion process, because that's what happens. Let's say 146. It runs up to 146. A bunch of people buy it at 146, and they're like, infinity tomorrow. The moon, here we come. Well, guess what? The python's going to digest the pig, which is going to take a while. And so we're going to grind sideways for 6, 7, 8 months, maybe 3 months, maybe 9 months. Nobody knows. But the short take is the Python's going to digest that pig, and it's not going to be infinity tomorrow. It's going to take some time. So what does that mean? So then let's talk about this dip here. This dip here was what's called the tariff tantrum. That was when the entire world economy was afraid it was going to go off the cliff because we were going to end up in a massive trade war. A trade war is when everybody's tariffing each other's stuff, which basically means, hey, if you ship products to the United States, you have to pay a huge fee, and it's super expensive, and it's bad for the economy, and it's bad for everything. So the whole world economy freaked out, and when people freak out, they sell stuff. Bitcoin gets sold because it's the most liquid market out there in any currency. You can buy and sell Bitcoin 24/7, trading daily volumes of between 50 and 80 billion dollars. So if you're freaking out and panicking and you think the whole world's about to shut down, even though Bitcoin is the right asset to own in that situation, when people are freaking out, they do stupid stuff and irrational stuff. Or if they're trying to save a business or save a family farm, they're going to sell whatever they can. They don't sell what they want. They sell what they can. And they could sell Bitcoin because it's liquid. You don't have to find a realtor to, sell your second home or whatever. I only have one, but some people have more than one. So anyway, in this tariff tantrum, it dipped. Now, what if you had bought it back here in this grind around $64,000? Well, you actually don't care because the lowest it ever got in this dip was higher than the highest it ever got back here. So what? Instead of, buying everything 50% off, very temporarily, you're buying everything at 5% off, 10% off, 1% off, whatever. But so what? You're not underwater. You're still in a great spot. You're just not living life as much of a discount if you're in a trough like that. So same in the future. Now, we could go through a brutal bear market at some point in the future where the price comes way down. If so, your finances have to be able to handle that, meaning you have to be able to just sit on your Bitcoin and wait for a higher price. And historically, a higher price has always come. It's only a matter of time. A higher price always eventually comes. As long as you're patient enough, you just got to make sure your finances do not end up upside down. And by upside down, I mean, you're up to your gills in debt. You bought Bitcoin on leverage, which you shouldn't do. And then suddenly there's a brutal bear market and you have to make payments on your house or you lose your job. And suddenly you're stuck selling all your Bitcoin when it's really low. So you've got to be able to survive that. But if you can survive that, if you make sure you're careful with your finances where you can survive that, then great. That means you just wait it out. So there was a bear market in 2014, 2018, 2022. So what? If you own Bitcoin, you just stop spending it and you spend US dollars or you spend another source of income. Now, if you're like me at 100% Bitcoin, then you're going to have to spend Bitcoin at any price. Unless you just start selling assets. But if Bitcoin got low enough, I would just start selling other assets. I'd find things I own and I'd find a way to sell them. But I've accumulated enough Bitcoin for a long enough from 2017 to the present that my average purchase price is $35,000 right here on this chart over here. It's right around there. So right around there is my average purchase price. That's because I bought a bunch of not a bunch, but I bought some Bitcoin as low as 6,400. I bought a lot more at 9,000. I bought some more at 14,000, but I didn't really start accumulating aggressively until 2021, which means I've accumulated a bunch of Bitcoin all up at these much higher prices. And when you average out the higher prices and the lower prices, you get to an average, in my case, of about $35,000 per coin, which means I've more than tripled my entire net worth because I have 100% of my net worth in Bitcoin and at an average price of 35,000. Now, the same if you're starting buying Bitcoin for the first time today, what will happen is you'll buy some at 115. It'll dip to 110, you'll buy some more. It'll go to 120, you'll buy some more. At some point, if you're starting today, you're going to end up with an average purchase price of $180,000. But again, with enough time, you won't care because it will be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and the dips will never get you close to 180. So I am in that place. There's nobody on the planet that I'm aware of thinks that we will ever see $35,000 Bitcoin. So even though I bought Bitcoin at prices as high as $122,000, so what? I'm just waiting. I've got plenty of Bitcoin that I bought cheaper. So my average price is lower. And so what? If I'm spending Bitcoin, at 115,000, or if I'm dipping back here in this dip where it dipped as low as $74,000 for 5 minutes. So what? It's I'm willing to spend Bitcoin at $74,000 because I have enough Bitcoin that I've accumulated long enough at lower prices. So everybody eventually ends up in that place where they've bought enough Bitcoin over a long enough time period that their average price is low enough that you're just never going to see that average low price again. Look, I've got friends who, their average Bitcoin purchase price is in the hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, just hundreds of dollars. And they're up 1,000x on their average purchase price. Well, great. I mean, they can spend Bitcoin at any price. They don't even have to care what the price is because they're so in the money on their investment. So the takeaway from all of this is accumulate Bitcoin as much as you can. We are still within 10% of that 107. You can still buy Bitcoin today. And then the most important part is buy it before a huge run up that, before the Python swallows another pig. That's not whatever. It's almost nobody wants to do that because who wants to buy Bitcoin after you've been grinding around for 7 months around 107 within 10% of 107? Nobody wants to do that. They're all like, Bitcoin's boring. It's 115,000. It was 124,000 a month ago. We've spent 7 months. It feels like we've spent 7 months in the same general vicinity. And the truth is, yeah, that's because we've spent 7 months in the same general vicinity. That's exactly what's happened. We've spent 7 months within 10% of 107,000. Now, it hasn't been entirely contiguous. Some of those days were late 2024, some were early 2025. The vast majority were from May, what looks like May 1st, anyway, first week of May forward. The vast majority of those days within 10% have been, let's call it May 1st forward, which is all of May, all of June, all of July, all of August, and half of September. So anyway, that's more than half of those 216 days for whatever it's worth, has been, recently. So anyway, but again, everybody waits for the price to run. And then they're like, okay, the pig swallowed a python. Now I'm ready to buy. And it's like, yeah, but now you're going to have to wait and be patient. That sucks. If you bought Bitcoin on conviction based on the technology and the use case, then you could buy when it's grinding sideways and benefit when the python catches another pig, instead of having to buy in on the front end of that grind sideways and then be patient for 7 or 8 months while the python swallows the pig and digests it. So that's where we are. Again, we could go through a brutal bear market, meaning a down market. Make sure your finances can handle that. If that happens, I don't think that's super likely, but it could happen. And even if we dip again, I don't think anybody sees a dip lower than this dip over here. So what? If you bought in 2024, it's like last year. If you bought in 2024 and we see another dip down here to the 2025 lows, so what? You wait it out. And then when we're done with that dip, it goes much higher. Just like here. It's like it went up to here, barely above 100,000. Then it dipped and people are like, oh no, the world has ended. And it's like, no, give it a minute. And now we're chilling up here well above 100,000. Enjoy it. So accumulate as much Bitcoin as you can. Hold on to it for as long as conceivably possible. And the way you win in Bitcoin is you spend the Bitcoin you accumulated at 28,000 when it's 64. You spend the Bitcoin you accumulated at 64,000 at 107. You spend the Bitcoin you accumulated around 107 or 115 or whatever up when it's a lot higher. And Bitcoin appreciates much faster than inflation. And as a result, you go to Costco or Kroger or Walmart or Target or wherever you shop, the prices are all going up 7% a year. And you're like, I don't care. My purchasing power is going up 30, 40, 50, 100% a year. So who cares if everything costs 7% more for everyone else? It costs 50% less for you. So that's how you win with Bitcoin. I'm here. You can text me anytime, 601-207-0813. I answer, texts all day long by anybody who texts me at that number, or my direct iPhone number if you happen to know that number. They both text me on the same iPhone. But if you have my direct iPhone number, text me there. If not, text my forwarding number, which is 601-207-0813, which will automatically text my iPhone. They both are on my same phone. You can also message me on Facebook Messenger. Just message me from one of my posts so it's the real me. Or you can hit me up on Signal or WhatsApp or any other messaging app, which has the same phone number as my real iPhone number that I've had for more than 25 years. So I am here to serve. I love answering Bitcoin questions. Let me know what I can do for you. And that's how you win with Bitcoin. You buy it when it grinds sideways for 7 or 8 months, and then you wait a year and it's way higher. and you spend it, or you hold on to it if you want to spend it. I mean, nothing's more fun than buying it around 28 and spending it at 107. So you don't have to buy, you don't have to spend it the next year when it's up, 100% or 50% or whatever. You can just wait and, spend Bitcoin you bought at in the 28,000 grind zone or the 64,000 grind zone or the 107 grind zone. You can wait a few years and spend it when it's 250,000. And that's even more fun. The whole world is even more discounted for you because you were patient. That's how you win with Bitcoin. It's not that hard. I hope these charts were helpful in understanding just sort of how much time the Bitcoin price spends at each of these price levels, and why it sort of hangs around certain price levels as the Python digests the peg, and why it's better to buy on the tail end of those price levels, which is where we are right now. We are on the very tail end of this $107,000, rather than wait for the next big price jump and then buy, and then you're stuck grinding sideways for 6, 7, 8 months and being annoyed at me that your Bitcoin's not going up. Well, it would have gone up if you bought it before the Python caught a new pig. That's the magic here. Buy the Bitcoin before the Python catches the next pig, and then when it's grinding sideways, you feel good about it instead of sort of wondering why it's taking so long. So I'm here to serve. I love answering Bitcoin questions. I'm here for anything you need. Just let me know. Thank you, everyone.